We are with a group of soon-to-be future educators here. That's the class I'm with. And so they have some specific questions for all of you. But I know, Cyan, you have somewhere to go, a meeting as you're in your school. So maybe start by telling us what what got you into education, what it was like. Did you know in high school? And then what was it like, the education program at your college? And then just a little bit about, where you're at and what it's like for you.
Okay. I feel like I've always wanted to be a teacher. I don't know, I just grew up like babysitting my cousins or watching after my sister, and I just felt like I was really good with kids. So I kind of knew from high school. Even my mom said it. She was like, I think she's actually watching right now. But I think she was like, "You're going to be a teacher. I just know it." So I went into college. I went to the University of Scranton in Pennsylvania. They had an amazing program. I got into a bunch of different schools to observe and do field work. And then I did my student teaching experience there as well about 4 or so years ago. I was in a second and third grade class. And then when I graduated, I went to Spain in 2019, and I was teaching English over there to about pre-K to sixth grade age kids. It was amazing. It was a great experience. I recommend you do it if you have the opportunity. And then because of COVID, I actually had to come home. And then I was kind of doing some leave replacements here and there. And then this school year, I got a full-time position Putnam Valley as a sixth grade ELA and social studies teacher. It has honestly been weird. COVID and everything else, October through probably February, March, we don't know what's going to happen. So it's been challenging as a first-year teacher, on top of juggling the difficulties of being a first-year teacher. But COVID itself has really kind of changed the way teaching is. But yeah, that's, where I'm at now. So any questions from future educators?
Yes, so Cyan, there are some questions specifically for you. They wanted to know a little bit more about the education program at Scranton. What did it do a good job of preparing you for? And similarly, what did you wish it had provided you with?
So they did a really good job having different placements. So I was in a school that was very low socioeconomic status. So I got to experience, students coming into the classroom without jackets and socks and sneakers. And that's a reality of the situation. And then they also, sent me to a bit higher end of a suburban area. So I got to experience a lot of different grade levels. I was in pre-K. I was pre-K, first, second, third, and fourth grade. So just a lot of different fieldwork experiences. I do wish that they helped a little bit more with getting my certification transfer to New York, because Pennsylvania is a lot different than New York. I was lucky enough that I got the opportunity to do EdTPA, which you guys will learn about and probably hate. But it was very difficult transferring my certification across states. So, that's something that I wish that they did a little bit better of. Hi, Javis.
Zach, you having a problem?
I think so.
All right, I guess he's having a problem. All right, Mr. Martinez, how are you?
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you, Mr. Jaffis?
Having trouble, M. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me now? It's still no good?
Very faintly. Can we go over to Miss Och and then we'll come back to you?
Yeah, sure.
Try again, M.
Can you hear me now?
No, very faintly. All right, so play around with that a little bit, and we'll go to Miss Och. Miss Och, can you introduce yourself a little bit and explain about who you are? Having trouble hearing you too.
No, that's just me with technology.
Okay.
So I'm Tinocha Grossi-Fink. I grew up here in Ossining, came to school here, much like Ms. Manarino and Mr. Martinez and Ms. Garduzio. My senior year of high school, I went to an alternative program, Walkabout, and I got my first taste of teaching there. I worked in an alternative ed program for middle schoolers. I fell in love with it. It was a transitional program from 6th grade to 7th grade, and they just taught me how much of an impact between my own experience at Walkabout and working with these kids in the program, how much of an impact a teacher can have. I always sort of knew that from my own life experiences, but to see the transformative way of that the educators that I was working with at Walkabout and then working with at the alternative program where I did my internship, both schools had kids that were completely disengaged, who for all variety of reasons just hated school.
Mhm.
And so that's when I decided this is what I want to do. I want to like help kids see the value in it for themselves and help them just be better. And
Amazing.
so off I went.
That's amazing. And I had the privilege of graduating with Miss Och's sister, a couple years older than Miss Och, and we graduated together back in 1988.
Mhm.
So everybody on this screen right now is an OHS grad, and so all of us are now teaching, which is amazing. Miss Manarino, can you talk a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I graduated 10 years after Mr. Jaffes in 1998 from here. Mr. Martinez and I were in high school together, but he's older than I am as well, so he graduated ahead of me. I like to point that out. So I didn't leave here knowing exactly what it was I wanted to do. I had taken a variety of classes, different electives. I had taken the law classes and I had liked that. And so when I first started college, I went to Pace and I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And that was the direction I thought I was going in the first year. And then something clicked that maybe that wasn't exactly 100% what I wanted, because I also liked interacting with children. And I thought, hey, I might be able to make a difference in some child's life, as a few teachers along the way had made a difference in mine. And so I changed my idea of what I wanted to do from being a lawyer to being a teacher. However, I love small children, but I knew that, unlike Cyan, I knew that if I taught small children, I would never have children of my own. So I opted to teach high school because for those of you who've had me, you know, there's a bit of sarcasm to me, and it doesn't go well with small children sometimes. And so I went to Pace for 3.5 years, and I majored in history and minored in political science and psychology. And then I didn't do any of my education studies undergrad at all. I opted to go just for a master's in secondary education, and I did that at Mercy. And I student taught here and at St. Augustine's here in Ossining. And then I went on to be a teacher at AMD and then here. So that's pretty much my path. I like what I do. I like interacting with kids on a daily basis. Sometimes it's trying, sometimes it's more rewarding. It's a combination thereof, I think. I think anybody on the screen will say the same.
100% agree. Thank you, Miss Manarino. Mr. Martinez, let's go over to you. I had the fortune of starting at Ossining with Mr. Martinez, and he's gone in a bunch of different directions since then. And I'll let him, hopefully, if his mic is working, talk about all those different paths.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, much better? Good.
Yes.
So thank you, Mr. Jaffes, and hello, everybody. It's so, even if it's virtual, it's great to be back in Ossining for the little bit of time to just have an opportunity to kind of share my story a little bit and to answer any questions that any students might have. So yes, I am a grad from Ossining High School. Yes, a little older than Miss Manarino, but not Dr. Och. But nonetheless, sorry about that. Nonetheless, I my career started at Ossining actually, and this is one of the things that I'll say in terms of advice. You know, if we get to that point, which is about networking and making sure you still have connections to your roots. You know, I was fortunate enough to go off to college. You know, I started at Pace, finished at Mercy College, but while I was at Mercy College getting my bachelor's in history, I knew I wanted to come back to Ossining, so I kept in touch with the teachers at Ossining. I even taught, I was a substitute teacher my senior year of college, so I was back in the school community, so I knew what was going on. I was fortunate enough to student teach at Ossining and then land a job with Mr. Jaffes. There was 5 of us. Mr. North and Mr. Clayton was part of that crew that was hired in the social studies department back in the day.
I just want to say I can't believe they hired you and North before me, but they did, and that's okay.
Yeah, that's right. You still remember that we were before you, Mr. Jaffes, but it was nothing but love. I can assure you, I think that whole group was a great group that we came in together.
Agreed.
So I landed the first job. I was a teacher at Ossining High School in the social studies department for, I think it was 13 years. During that time, I was involved in lots of different, areas, helping, our students explore different types of clubs, different types of courses. I was part of the first group of folks that were creating some of those SUNY courses that we have tons of now there at Ossining, which I'm very proud of to see that concurrent enrollment program has grown tremendously. Something that I'm looking to do here and grow it here at White Plains. Then I went on to go to AMD, where I had a chance to connect with folks like Ms. Bacon, and some of the amazing other talented folks down at the middle school as the dean of students. That was an interesting experience being in a middle school for the first time after being in a high school. And then I realized that I wanted to continue to grow professionally and to have an impact on a larger scale. So I was fortunate enough to move on to a different district after the 14 years at Ossining and went to Bedford and Fox Lane, where still there was a little sense of home there because we have at Fox Lane, there was still a diverse community.
Mr. Martinez, you cut out a little bit. What did you do at Fox Lane?
I was the assistant principal at Fox Lane. So I was there. I was fortunate to have a position there where I was working with our students in lots of different capacities. Again, another diverse district, great Latino population that was really, a great experience for me. And then I decided to move on again, where I moved on to become principal at Cornwall, which is upstate right outside of Newburgh. I was fortunate to be there for a bit, but I realized I wanted to come back to Westchester in a community that's similar to what I grew up in, which was White Plains. So Ossining and White Plains are very similar. So that really was a sense of coming home, getting the opportunity to lead this building, which is a pretty large building. It's 2,200 students. There's about 240 staff members. I have 9 administrators that I work with to help provide our students a great experience here. So that was my journey, and each time that I made those shifts and those moves, I'll tell you, change is hard, but it's those risks, putting yourself out there, that really you reap the reward by doing so.
Amazingly said. Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Yonkler, if everything's working over there, why don't we knock it back to the kids?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jaffes, for taking over, and Mr. Martinez, we caught what you said there, and I don't know what we missed in the middle with our technical difficulties, but thanks everybody so much for bearing with us. Cyan, I know you still probably have to go in a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, I have to actually go now. If there are any questions,
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say let's get to Cyan.
Yeah,
no, it's okay. Sorry, I have a meeting in 2 minutes. If there are any questions, you could email me, and then I could hop on another meet or something.
Yep. Just 30 seconds, maybe, Cyan, as on your way out. One question specifically to you from the students was, you mentioned your bio struggling with parent communication as like one of your big issues. Can you just give us like 30 seconds, a little more insight into like what about that's troubling you and what you think might help you straighten that out moving forward?
You get parents who are involved, and then you get some parents who aren't. I think middle school is interesting because high school, you do get parent kind of contacting you about their grades, but it's really on the students. Elementary school, parents are all on top. They know everything that's happening. So middle school is kind of that weird place where they're letting their kids go, letting them be a little bit more independent, but they're still on top of their grades and they're still on top of what they're doing. But then you have some parents who, I have a lot of students whose families are going through a bad divorce. So I can talk to mom about this, but I can't talk to dad about this. So, you have to really know each family's situation and where the students are coming from. And just, you have to be patient. Some parents, they're a single parent with 5 kids, and they're not going to respond to your email within 3 days, and they're not going to return your phone call. So it's really getting to know the families and the students and what they do outside of the classroom and school.
So very proud of you, Cyan. Before you leave, I just want to let you know that anything any of us can ever do to help you, I'm sure you're going to be a fantastic teacher for many, many years, and we're all so proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah, email me if you guys have any other questions. I'm glad to help.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you. And maybe that's a good transition. And we'll go maybe to Katie and Tina. Is that still a struggle, or what do you find is the greatest challenge as an educator for you? And then maybe on the other side, what have been your greatest prouds or successes as educators?
Am I starting or? Oh, okay. I guess challenges. I would say that the challenges are the students who, I would say not every student has to like every class that they take. Like when you're trying to relate to 25 or 20 kids in a classroom and they all come from different backgrounds and have had different experiences. And then, there's the whole like, well, I like math better. I like science. I would say the hard thing is getting them to realize like they don't have to love it, but maybe they have to try to take something away from it. Like there has to be something there that you could have some small interest in, or there was something there that could possibly relate to something that you like better in the maths and the sciences, even though it's social studies or it's English. I would say biggest challenges are getting students to take an active interest, and particularly in the last 2 years with the pandemic, I think that's become increasingly harder to do. And I think coming back from the pandemic and trying to return to some type of normalcy, even while you're still in a pandemic, has made it difficult. But I think that students are embracing it as best they can. I would say that was my biggest challenge in the last few years. My greatest accomplishments is when I watch them, students who said that they couldn't do something, all of a sudden they can do it and they're comfortable with it and they master it. I teach a lot of courses that involve like public speaking, and over the years there have been many students who've said, I can't do this, I don't public speak. Like, okay, well, I didn't public speak when I was here either, and here I am. So I guess that's been my greatest accomplishment, is when I watch them get comfortable with themselves enough to actually express what it is they're thinking.
And mock trial going to the States this year. Congratulations.
Oh yeah, well, regionals, yeah, that's a big accomplishment for me. I'm very happy about that.
So I would agree with Katie that the biggest challenge of my career has been COVID, for slightly different reasons. I'm not somebody who loves to look at a screen all the time. I prefer looking at the faces of my kids and engaging with them in a more personal way. So learning the technology and not having that personal connection with the kids was really quite devastating to my career. But on the flip side of that, coming back this year, and I hit the lotto with my kids this year. So coming back this year and being able to be with them one-on-one has been probably the most rewarding thing in 23 years of working in Ossining. I also think that it's challenging to really meet the needs that we have here in Ossining, because we are like, my favorite thing, and my friends who are on this Google Meet know, my favorite thing, the one thing I think we do right here is diversity. We have you guys in classes from pre-K together all the way through high school. And so you don't see the divides in society that all the other people who you're going to get to know later in life see, because you've been friends your whole lives. But because we're so diverse, sometimes it's hard to make sure, as the person who's sort of leading the ship in the classroom, that everyone's getting what they need. And just as a teacher, that's always been my greatest challenge, to like, I always feel like somebody's slipping off the edge of the boat, and I'm trying to grab them, but then somebody's slipping off over here. And I think everyone on this meet, even EMART, Mr. Martinez as the principal, you put 2,200 people. I'm sure you constantly feel like you're trying to grab people. But I think the biggest reward of my job, truly without question, is like when my kids, when it's time to go and they're like, wait, class is over? Because that's when you know, like, you were all in it. You were all in it all the way. And those are the best days. Those are the best parts of teaching.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Tina. Mr. Martinez, we heard from both of them was like a focus, what I heard anyway, was a focus on students, right? The challenges were students that aren't engaged or aren't into it. The pros are when students are doing things they couldn't before, and they're growing. Is that the same for you? How do you juggle 2,200 students, as you mentioned, 200 staff, all the different things that go into running a building? What a similar question to you, like what are the challenges? How do you prioritize them? So one of the questions from our student, Elvis was, I want to say exactly what he said. How do you handle all those different things and the pressure, school, parents, students, state testing, budgets, infrastructure? So I guess prioritize those challenges for us and then give us like, what are your prides as a principal now?
Sure. So thank you for that question, Elvis. I mean, I would say, and I think everybody would agree that the most important thing, what I prioritize, what you would hope every principal prioritize is students, right? To making sure that our students get what they need. So that means, from whether it's working with a specific student that has a challenge, or whether it's working with a family or working with a teacher to get, the support a student needs. I would say that that's part of the priorities that we deal with as a principal. I'd say the other key part of this is, while it's a large building, you have to have a good team around you to be able to support you. This isn't a one-man show, so for me, it is always trying to lean on others to help move our building forward. White Plains, and as I heard, Tina talked there a little bit about, the challenges at Ossining. They're no different, in another district like White Plains, where students come from such diverse backgrounds, have such different diverse needs. Our population here is about 61% Latino. We have about 14% African American, and about 25% white. So it's very similar numbers, but again, our students unfortunately don't have the Princeton plan as Ossining. Our students, first time they're all together, because the size of our district is in 6th grade. So in 6th grade, they come together. There's 5 elementary schools that feed into the first middle school. There's 2 middle schools here in White Plains. So that's the first time they come together. But certainly, again, something that I think our students value is that they get a chance, the opportunity to see different types of students that look different than them, that speak different languages, and they embrace that. Because I know when I look at our colleagues here, we always hear back from students saying, it's amazing the experience I had at Ossining, right? Because of the fact is that I can speak to, when I go off to college, I know what it's like, what Dominicans eat, or I know what it's like to celebrate Ramadan, right? So I think it's really important, and that's, I think, one of the strengths that our students bring. So for me, to circle back to the final part of the question, the last years have been challenging, and I'll tell you, as a principal, and even if I wasn't a principal, those that know me, and also know I am a very social person. I'm a person that likes that human interaction. So to have gone through that pandemic and having to run schools during that time, it was always, very challenging, very stressful, because I was also dealing with times where parents were begging they wanted their kids to come into school 5 days a week, and unfortunately, again, size matters in the sense that, here at White Plains, we had such a huge building. We were not allowed to have our students here, 5 days a week. At first, they were coming 1 day a week last year here. So it wasn't until April where most of the regional districts went as well to in-person learning 5 days a week. But part of that, we went from 1 to 2 days for different students. And that was some of those challenges. We had some students that wanted to come in more. We had some students that didn't want to. We had our special, our students with learning differences that we needed to provide more services to. So it was juggling all those things together, but also keeping in mind and focus on what's in the best interest of students. So that's always been, my compass as to with the decisions I make. And I'll tell you, as a principal, and I'm sure Mr. Hancock would agree, there's some things that the little things, or the things that are at the bottom of our list are like discipline and stuff like that. That's what we don't want to deal with. We want to always figure out, how do we create opportunities for our students? How do we make sure that specifically, kids that look like me, coming to this country as a 5-year-old are able to have opportunities to be able to sit in a chair like this, or be able to be a lawyer, or to be able to be a doctor, whatever they choose to do. And I think that's our biggest priority, is always to unlock the potential of every student.
Well, one of the coolest things in my life, Mr. Martinez, is watching you get your citizenship. Being there and watching you get your citizenship, absolutely amazing. And before we go back to Mr. Yonkler, I'd just like to say one of the best parts of my job are teaching with the wonderful people on this meet right now, who I call my friends, and not only teaching with them, but learning from them. And that's a pretty amazing thing that we have at Ossining. We have an incredible group of teachers. to teach a wonderful group of students.
All right, thanks, Mr. Martinez. Thanks, Mr. Jaffis. Next question is coming here live from student Lucy, and it's for Miss Manarino and Miss Och. Okay, Lucy.
I guess my question is, what surprised you the most when you started teaching, and what message would you have for someone going into education about like things that we wouldn't know?
Thanks so much.
Can I go first, Katie? Okay. If I'm going to be really honest, growing up, you're in such a bubble. And even though like I was like, my grade was one of the first grades to go to the Princeton plan. So I had a lot more exposure than everybody else in my family prior to entering high school, middle school and high school. But you still kind of grow up in a bubble. And then I went to college and I thought, wow, now I've really seen the world, you know? And when I came to school and really getting to understand how much like everyone's home is different. Like everyone's experience, what everyone wants. Like we all want the best for kids, but what that means is very different for each family. That was probably for me like the most mind-blowing thing. Like, wow, and like 23 years later at the beginning of the year, I try to always remember, meet the kids at the door, shake their hands, right guys? Make them look you in the eye, look them in the eye, and then really get to know them, because every one of them come in with a different story, with a different background. So like, while I'm saying, like I said before, like in Ossining, we have this great exposure, right? But yet everyone really is an individual. And like, I don't think I ever truly understood that until I became a teacher, like how very unique every individual is. And that could be very overwhelming. I found it very overwhelming in the beginning. It's what I love the most about being a teacher. But at the beginning, I had to be reminded a lot before it really became a part of who I was. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I forgot the second question.
Any advice? Like,
Oh, advice?
going into education?
Cut yourself some slack. From day one, I have felt on the regular, even on the best day, like I haven't done enough. That would be the advice that I would give. Just keep working hard, put the kids always in front. Don't let anything get you down, but remember to cut yourself some slack. Like, it's okay. If you're doing it with the best of intentions, you're doing the best you can do.
Okay, I'll start with the second question because I'm going to have to be reminded for the first question. My advice for those of you who are planning to go into the field is when you pick your college, keep in mind where you think you will want to teach, because all different states have all different requirements. And you heard Ms. Scarduzio say that, you know, Scranton, it was more difficult for her when she was trying to apply for her certifications here. New York is complicated, and so there's a lot of requirements to teach in New York State. So when you're going through your undergrad and then eventually your grad, particularly your undergrad with New York, check to see what the requirements are for a teaching degree in New York State, if that's where you plan to be, or Connecticut, or whatever state you choose, because you don't want to have to go back and take more undergrad classes for a certification later on and cost yourself more money. That would be my advice, and it changes. They change the rules on you, here and there. So that's my advice with regard to, like, when you pick your schools, pick any school you want, but just make sure that you're keeping in mind that you plan to be in this area or whatever, and go forth from there. What was the first part of the question?
The first part was like, what surprised you, or what didn't you expect? And then Tina, just go ahead once she's done.
I took over mid-year for a teacher who had unfortunately died. And so I had a very different experience my first year of teaching. I walked into a group of kids who had 4 different teachers from November to January, and I was the 4th one. So there was some like trust issues. They weren't 100% sure they were going to like me because everybody else had left them. And so it was definitely an uphill battle. My advice would be pick your battles. you know, it's not perfect. Teaching is not there's never a perfect day. In a 20-year career, I can't say I ever had a perfect day, but I've learned a lot. Every day I've learned something. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad, and sometimes it was a combination thereof, but it was definitely always very interesting. And so if you take it out of your mindset that it's going to be perfect, but it can be quite enjoyable, I think you'll get a lot out of your career.
Just going back to what Ms. Garduzio and Katie said about the program that you take, look for what states have reciprocity as well. I went to SUNY Albany for my teaching degree, and SUNY Albany, like the school itself, is a certification pathway school. So I didn't have to do anything outside school in order to get my certification. Everything was done there. I mean, I had to take the tests, but they set you up to take the tests through the teacher ed program there. My husband went to Scranton, and he had the same experience as Ms. Garduzio. He had to figure it all out himself. They didn't have a pathway program. So you know whether or not your school has a pathway program. And then the other thing is look to what state you get certified in, where they have reciprocity. That just means that so if we have reciprocity with another state, my teaching license is valid in that other state. I may have to take a fee, or I may have to register with the state, but my certificate is valid there. But it might not be valid in other states, so I might have to take other tests.
All right, thank you so much, both of you. We have another student question here.
Hi.
I'm sorry, Zach. We have about 7 minutes. Just to.
Yep, I got you.
I'm sorry to cut her off. Thank you.
No worries. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Joja. This is for Miss Och and Miss Manarino. Why did you start at OHS, and what kept you guys here?
Okay.
And then for Mr. Martinez, we noticed that you have worked in many districts. Why was this intentional, and was it beneficial?
I didn't start here. We started at AMD.
Well, in Ossining, I guess. How about
in Ossining? I came to Ossining because I grew up here, and I truly love the community. I love what we stand for as a community. I wanted to honor my parents. They are still here, my family, my aunts and uncles. And honestly, I wanted to come back and give back, because there were some times where if it weren't for a handful of teachers, a handful of experiences, I could have really, gone off the rails. But I had a few people who really just dragged me kicking and screaming at points over the finish line. So I just wanted to come back and do that for other people.
So I obviously am a graduate here, and I grew up here, and I still live here. I had student taught here with the person who previously ran the law program. And while I was student teaching, there was an opening at AMD, and I was interviewing in this district and other districts. And this district came in with an offer, and it involved a lot of programs that I thought I would really like to be a part of, and gave me the opportunity, perhaps eventually in my career, to take over a program that had done a lot for me personally as a student when I was here. And so when they offered me the job at AMD, I took it. And I loved my time at AMD, and I've loved my time at the high school, and I've gotten the opportunity to not only teach history, which I love, but to teach law, which was, the other runner-up for a career choice for me. So I think I got the best of both worlds, and that I get to teach something that I love and still interact with children on a daily basis. So that was what made me come here and stay here.
But you're also the best personal finance teacher in the world.
That too. I've also won many competitions against Mr. Jaffes, as I like to remind him.
And Mr. Martinez, for you, it was like Ms. Manarino, Ms. Och, myself, Mr. Jaffes. We came and we kind of stayed here, and the students in this class noticed on your resume there was a lot of bouncing around. Sometimes that's viewed as a negative in some professions. Not that we're saying that, but
Right.
Can you speak to just with all those different stops, looking back at it, were you happy with it, or would you have done anything differently, and why'd you do that?
So thank you. So I think the bigger part of what I'm going to say here is about, you're whatever you planned when you're young, that's never the case, right? So just know that you have to be flexible. You have to be open, because you don't know where life takes you. I never initially thought that I would become an administrator, that I would ever leave the classroom. The opportunity presented itself, after being in the classroom for, like I said, 13 years. I loved working in Ossining. It's still very near and dear to my heart. And I would say is that, sometimes when you want to grow professionally, you have to, explore opportunities. And sometimes those opportunities are where you are, and sometimes they're not. So while I have gone and worked in 4 different places, I don't think I would change it, because I think that each place that I've worked, I've always taken something from them, and I've learned from that. So that has allowed me to become what I would hope folks would see. And I think, folks here agree, is that allows me to have such a well-rounded view, because I've worked in such different places and seen different systems and worked with, and worked with different types of students. So, I would say that it wasn't a negative for me, and it really is, just the path that happened to open up for me. At the time, there was a time, I think, at one point where I was interested in being the high school dean of students. That didn't pan out. So I ended up, eventually an opportunity came for a middle school dean position. So again, it's about, if you have a passion, you have an interest in something, pursue it, and be willing to take those risks. Because I'll tell you, I know we're about to run out of time, but I'll tell you, it was not an easy decision. My friends would tell you that the summer that I was leaving the high school to go to middle school, it was painful in terms of how much do I want to make this shift? Do I want to leave, with folks that I've known for the last 13 years? So absolutely, it is just something that you kind of have to work through yourself, and but I don't regret it, because I think I'm happy that I'm doing great stuff with kids.
Thanks.
Can I
Tina?
I just want to say too, like Mr. Martinez is a principal, he's an administrator. And I think too, just looking back over my career, like as a classroom teacher, it's good that I've been in Ossining for this long, and I've really gotten to know, especially because I'm planning on staying, right? God willing. I really know the community. As an administrator, especially somebody who elevates up to running a building, I think it's important for administrators to have a variety before they get to that point, because like Mr. Martinez, and this is for the students in the class, Mr. Martinez has had a variety of experiences, both here in Ossining and across different districts. So he has a lot of he's dealt with thousands of people, like adults. And so he brings all of that to where he is going to be for the next 10 years. And then wherever he goes next, he will have all of those experiences. And so just something to think about for future educators. If you're going to be an administrator, I think it makes sense. And Mr. Martinez, you can let me know if you see this. I know I see it. Administrators often do move around a lot more than teachers, because the districts are looking for that varied experience.
Well, thank you all three so much. As you see and heard, we have our bell ringing here, so we're in transition. We really appreciate the insight into your journeys and what you do and think about as educators. And this class might have some more specific questions for each of you, so hopefully with email we'll reach out if they do. And we appreciate it. The 40 plus classes live streaming in hopefully saw a little bit about what goes into the minds of educators, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Barry.